Hey guys, it's Matt. For anybody that's just listening, I have a few images here, but you don't need them at all. I can't even use many. Just for a little bit of entertainment value, I have a few images. You won't need them if you're in the car, just so you know. And also, you'll see the movie poster for Total Recall with Schwarzenegger. And this is in no way a Total Recall movie review. I'm going to talk about it initially, but get into a much, much bigger topic. How we, in this reality, we're getting help. We are getting help, which is, once you get this realization, there's very few things that are more positive than that. If that doesn't get you out of bed in the morning, pretty much nothing will. But let's just look at Total Recall for a few reasons to start. Doesn't get the credit it deserves. This is the original red pill, wake up, return to reality scene. But what does the truth community present over and over? Morpheus in the Matrix presenting red pill, blue pill. How many times has anybody seen that? Is that new to anybody? Morpheus in a truth video, Morpheus presenting red pill, blue pill. Somebody saying, I saw that once. See, I've seen it like 1,000,000 times. This is the original red pill, where Douglas Quaid, that's Quato. Douglas Quaid, married to Sharon Stone. He goes to recall, has a bad implant. They implant a vacation where you don't actually have to go on the vacation. You just are implanted. The memories are implanted. But it's a bad implant. We don't know if he's a real superhero or it's just a implanted vacation that's gone bad. He's losing touch with reality. The doctor at recall, who's supposed to be projected in his mind, comes in and says, Doug, you're losing it here, buddy. If you want to return to reality, you need to take this. He said, what's that? That was the worst Schwarzenegger ever done. And he says, it's just a figment. It represents your desire to return to reality. And he's like, well, okay, let's assume you're right. What if I take it? I'm not even going to try to do it anymore. What if I take it? He says, well, then he doesn't say you'll wake up in your dream. What's very interesting is he says you will go to sleep in your dream. We'll talk about that in a moment. But this is the original red pill scene. And is there one person that would watch this sort of a video on the crazy side of YouTube that wouldn't believe there's a connection? Red pill, returning to reality, having the real world emerge. Of course, there's a connection. Somebody just think, yeah, it's just in the movie, they could have picked the color for the pill to be anything. It's just random. No, that's not how this reality does business for topics that are this big. Coming into reality, red pill. It has nothing to do with the Republicans and conservative movements and QAnon. No, but we'll talk about that a little bit later, or if anybody wants to express their theory as to why it's red pill. And again, this movie doesn't get the credit it deserves. It's just Matrix all the time and Morpheus. I mean, there are a lot of truth drops in this movie. And the main, quote, truth drop that will lead to the bigger issue, where I'll move away from Total Recall, that we are getting help in a lot of different areas. And then we'll move into, well, where is that help coming from? Which, of course, could be interpreted a lot of different ways, from a traditional religious Christian perspective to a higher self perspective. We'll talk about that and move away from this. But this movie has tons of truth drops. You just walk by the movie poster here. Anybody that has a clue about a clue would say, oh, what's this movie? We didn't have a clue back in the day, but I'm just saying if it were to come out now, you'd say, oh, one eye symbolism. I know it's not the right eye cover. They don't always cover the right eye. You just walk by the movie poster and say, oh, one eye symbolism and a giant pyramid? Oh, yeah, this is Illuminati Central. Let's go in and see this movie. It's got just the movie poster itself. There's a pyramid where the capstone is glowing and one eye symbolism. Oh, yeah, there's nothing to see here, hun. It just tells you. We don't have to. I'm not ever going to be expert at interpreting all that type of symbolism. I can notice the symbolism, and then what I'm good at is trying to interpret the meaning of what the media or the form of media is presenting. For anybody just listening, I'm going to show images of the famous scene in the movie where he puts that thing up his nose and Schwarzenegger pulls that giant ball implant out of his nose. So just to finish up with this movie, before we move on to the bigger topic, use this movie to go back 50,000 feet and look down. This movie delivers truth connections decade after decade. And you know where I'm going here. I don't even think I have to say it, but jam it up there. People have been putting this connection together. In the movie, he's removing an implant, but it's the opposite. Maybe the opposite is happening, but I don't think that, guys. I really don't. I don't think if anybody gets the test, they're putting something in there. I don't believe that. I really don't. I believe, we'll get into this some other time. Okay. But, look at the picture, the middle right, jam it up there. So this movie delivers in a lot of different ways. Guys, I was thinking as I paused and I'm doing this segment now, there's so much truth in this movie that another 5 to 10 minutes here, which every time I say that, right, turns into 15 or 20, it's warranted. It just is warranted before we get to the absolutely most incredible message here, the incredible message we can take away from a lot of different forms of media, that we're getting help and how incredibly wonderful it is to come to that realization. But let's just do 5 or more minutes here. How many times I'm going to return to Total Recall? So just jotting down the potential truth drops, and there's just I could just keep going and going, but I want to get on to the most important segment. So just the main premise of what is real. We used to argue in high school or college after we saw this movie, whenever it came out, that, well, was it real what happened to him, or was it the implant and it was all the dream? Looking back now, I mean, to me, it clearly is the implant and the dream. He just happened to be a real secret agent, But look, the point is, it doesn't matter. The point is, it wanted us pondering, well, which one of these realities was real? And you can make an argument. The beauty of this movie, you can make an argument on both sides. So there's that. And by the way, I mean, I guess the messages in this movie are so big from an Illuminati control room, Chernobyl center perspective, they had to bring it back. And I'm sure I guess I tried to watch it for a little bit and I turned it off. I don't even remember Colin Farrell they brought back to do the remake. And even the remake now is probably 6 or 7 years old. But Colin Farrell, I mean, he's weak, man. You want to talk about, I don't know, I'm just saying, just a pretty face. I don't think he's ever impressed me in anything. I think A Winter's Tale is kind of a great movie, but you could have cast anybody, Joe Pesci or something, it would have been better. The movie itself was very good. I don't think he did, although he was decent in it. Anyway, whatever. I don't know why they go with this guy, but let's move on. So you have the incredible red pill symbolism of the movie. A return, a figment of his imagination, a way to wake up from the dream, from the illusion, to return to reality, to shed the dream, to shed the Maya. You have the incredibly big principle in Total Recall of two selves. You have Douglas Quaid, mild-mannered construction worker with 20-inch arms and biceps, married to just makes perfect sense. A supermodel in her prime, Sharon Stone, mild-mannered, just living out his life. But no, it's really this guy over here. This is Hauser, not Douglas Quaid. This is, don't they ever say his first name? Is it just Hauser? Is that what's on his birth certificate? Just Hauser. He's talking to himself. And he's here in this scene here. Remember, he appears on the screen. He's like, that's my body you've got there, and I want it back. So it gets into Wetiko, a dark self, shadow self. Recent theories that have been brought to my attention about the engineered avatar or body. Why is the brain two completely separate sides with one small bridge connecting them? Does that make any sense? No, it doesn't make any sense. And in that operation where you cut the corpus callosum, how can the person continue to function at all? Two selves. There's a huge issue here. I saw, I guess this is from, of course, the remake, where one pretty face here, Colin Farrell's talking to himself, but this one this must be the evil one because he has the goatee. Always makes weak ass wimps like Colin Farrell look tougher. Well, Matt, you have a goatee from time to time. Yeah, exactly. Anyway, to the two selves, right here, that's my body, and I want it back. Quaid talking to himself like he's some asshole. So again, a lot of people would say, oh yeah, two selves, or the id, ego, superego, of course, meant to throw you off the path, but there's truth in all that Sigmund Freud stuff. I mean, so anyway, that's a major topic here in this movie as well. Other major topics in this movie: the mind wipe, the mind erase, coming into this life without any understanding at all of who we are, where we came from, our true selves. So you have the mind wipe associated with the false life and the distractions, all wrapped up into one in his life here as the mild-mannered construction worker with supermodel Sharon Stone, who just happens to be his wife. Well, she's doing two things in this movie. She's providing a distraction, of course, as if I get my mind wiped and put into a construction job, not knowing who I am, could you put someone like Sharon Stone in my house and call her my wife? That's like Thomas Anderson, The Matrix, saying The Matrix might have been better than understanding who he really is. And that's also that's one of the temptations we have too. I'll choose finding out, the path that I'm on, finding out who I really am. But that's what this society and this life does too, saying you don't really want to find out. This video game's fun, isn't it? Well, this girlfriend you have here is fun, isn't it? In this society, the NFL, you've got these tickets where there's nobody in front of you. That's fun, man. You don't want to really find out who you are. So you got the mind wipe, the false life. He's implanted into a false life, into the construction job. He has no idea who he really is. Sharon Stone's meant to be a distraction, representing the distractions of society, as well as to keep him, she's working a job, to keep him in that false life. And how many parts of this matrix are here to keep you on that false path? People think this is just some mindless movie where you put Arnold Schwarzenegger, you put him in, and you just think, oh, that's really mindless if he's in it. But maybe that's why they put him in it. Sometimes, the truth drops in all media are inserted into the most absurd, of course. And people at the Thanksgiving table think we're just idiots. You have minor truth drops. Cohagen and Richter. He is the administrator, or he is the L. Paul Bremer of not of Iraq, but of the Green Zone on Mars. But he's just like an arch criminal. You don't know. They never talk about him. Well, to represent him as the ultimate arch criminal, they should give him a title inside of a formal government. There's no government. He's just some thug or somebody that's taken over Mars. You don't really know how he fits in with government, but maybe that's the truth drop there. That is government. But then his henchman is this Michael Ironside's Richter? Richter runs around trying to kill Quaid. But see, that's all he's being used too. That's all part of the plan. It's all part of the plan. He just falls short of killing Quaid because this is the most important part of the video coming, because Quaid gets help, just as we're getting help. And what really disturbed me, all the disturbing things in this movie, but look at that. The top right it looks like that's the image for anybody listening, guys, of when the dream he has where his space helmet cracks on Mars and his eyes start bulging out, his tongue starts bulging. This is what really should have happened to Matt Damon in The Martian after that little accident where he grew his potatoes. But somehow Matt Damon in The Martian, he just duct taped. He duct taped his helmet and everything was fine. Yeah, at least this is probably realistic. If anybody could land on this thing, which you can't land on it anyway. But anyway, I don't want to stray too much. There's probably a few people that stumbling upon this video, believing my presentation is sane, and they just question my sanity after that. But this is what really should have happened to Matt Damon. The Martian is a litmus test for somebody that has a real problem with reality. If somebody likes the Matt Damon movie, The Martian, they are probably beyond all hope. I watch it, but it's a comedy. It's so bad, it's a comedy. But when I went to a certain Super Bowl party years ago, everybody was like, "Oh, did you see The Martian? It was so good." I was like, "What?" It was one of the worst movies ever made. Anyway, what really bothered me, and I'll get to the main point in a second, guys. Stop with this nonsense. But Michael Ironside was having a relationship with Sharon Stone. That was his real girlfriend, and that really bothered me. But it gave hope to so many millions of young men that if one of the ugliest men in the world, one of the most repulsive men in the world, this Michael Ironsides could get with Sharon Stone, it was a good thing, I guess. It gave hope to that if this creep could score Sharon Stone, even if they're both evil, then anything's possible. But let's get on to the big issue here. No, wait, I promise to get to the big stuff, but I keep seeing things that I forgot about. Johnny Cab. Remember that Johnny Cab, total truth drop in this movie, because it relates to what's going on exactly right now. For anybody showing a picture of the Johnny Cab. Remember, Schwarzenegger gets in, it's just this plastic, it looks like a mannequin driving. He's not really driving anything. He's just there for your entertainment. He's like, "How'd I get here? That door opened. You got in." Johnny Cab. Well, right now in China, I don't know, Shenzhen, or I have no idea where. It's not Beijing or Shanghai, but they'll have it soon. They have driverless cabs. Not beta test or whatever. They're actually operating right now. There's a picture of you. Somebody puts their dog in to take it to the vet, just puts the dog in, closes the door. Dog's in there by itself, goes off. So, look, anybody saying, "Well, Matt, obviously all of this is coming in the future. Anybody could have predicted it." Okay. But it all is, even Uber, in my opinion, Uber is that middle ground between driverless and the merging of the AI technological singularity, completely taking a human being into zeros and ones land that they want to do to people. Uber is the middle ground between the old-fashioned cabbies and having driverless. That's the middle ground. That's the middle three Star Wars. From the first three great movies to the last three movies ruining it on purpose, you had the middle three. You always have to have a transition. Okay, wait a second. You can't talk about Total Recall without doing a segment on Quato. Quato, it's got to be inner knowing, right? If anybody that doesn't know the movie, this guy has another entity of some kind, like a Yoda entity, living in his stomach. He opens his shirt up and his head comes out, and it has its own personality. And the person that's carrying it, he kind of goes into a dream state or a trance state, and this other entity takes over. And this Quato is all knowing, and he has psychic abilities. And there's about 1 million memes here, and there's an animation of a mini Donald Trump coming out of Donald Trump's stomach, and a lot of stuff here I didn't expect to see, but let's just stick to the point. It's inner knowing. Quato. You have your own inner tuning fork. Inner knowing. Quato. Quaid, take my hand. Quaid, start the reactor. What is that? What's that a metaphor for? Start the reactor. Now, of course, it's always going to carry a deception. Matt, it means aliens came in. No, it doesn't. Aliens were on Mars and then this and that. And no. In my opinion, segments. I don't want to get into it. That's not. I think that anything that comes out of Hollywood that will deliver truth will, of course, then throw people off the path at the end. So start the reactor might be something completely. I'd like to hear what you have to say about the metaphor of start the reactor. It has nothing to do with starting an oxygen generation machine on Mars. But I saw this is inner knowing. I'm not going to say inner tuning fork anymore to tap into real truth. I used to try to make decisions with the ego mind. Oh my gosh, they're horrible decisions. Getting into like when I was doing the insurance, like business relationships with these, just like, well, this makes sense. This broker's been in business for a certain amount of years, and the guy is like totally trying to then just turn around and try to screw you. And you had the bad feeling about the person all along. The inner knowing and the inner tuning for it was like, he just feels wrong. It feels wrong getting into a relationship with this person, or, recommending a certain YouTube channel or something. And, whatever it might be over the many years I've been doing this. But it's like, well, my head's telling me this is the right decision, but the feeling is wrong. And now we just say, what is your inner Quato? What does your inner Quato say? Inner Quato's coming. He's coming out of my stomach right now. There's actually something there. It's not just inner knowing. There's an entity coming out. He says, Matt, QAnon is real. Trust the plan. Okay, the final segment. The most profound part, and these images are horrible, whatever. We don't need them anyway here. The most profound part of Total Recall, as it relates to what we need to realize now. And again, guys, before I present this, I'm gonna say we have help in understanding what this life is for and understanding more about ourselves in this life. We're getting help from all sorts of sources. Don't read into that too literally. Like, well, that doesn't. What do you mean we're getting help? So people are at all levels here. The writers of Total Recall and the directors, they got some sort of message from on high that they're to deliver some occult meaning that real spirited human beings will tap into, and they were in on it. No, we know now. The evidence is almost overwhelming. We know now that this stuff can flow out of media without even the writers being aware of it. We know from what Vanessa VA has been doing with her songs, there is no way these little writers of songs were carrying such high-level esoteric or occult messages that talk about your spiritual self, your relationship with higher self. The writers of the music didn't know that. Absolutely not. If you're getting that sort of message, that really third-level, high-level message from a source of media, it's almost assured in most cases the writers and whoever put it out didn't know about it. The reality works that way. So let's just, again, before we get into the final last page of the book here, in the movie, you can't really, again, there's no good images, but it doesn't matter. I'm trying to find Cohagen here, bottom left here. Cohagen here, the evil antagonist, excuse me, is talking to, I guess it's still Quaid, but they're gonna zap him back, and he's going to become Hauser again, the evil Hauser. They're gonna put him back in that chair and implant Hauser back, or get rid of the overlay, the reality overlay. He believes he's Quaid, and just a few minutes before, they say, well, let me, they always have to explain exactly what happened. This was our big plan, and you're being used. He's actually being used. It's another level truth drop. He's being used by other forces to do good, to start the reactor, which puts oxygen back on Mars, all a metaphor probably for something else, or it doesn't have to be this grand metaphor. Somebody might say, Matt, aren't you taking like the truth hints of Total Recall a little bit too far? Yeah, perhaps. But if we see them, maybe it's only meant for us to see them. It doesn't matter. Maybe I'm taking a little bit too far. But he's supposed to do something for Cohagen. That's why they set him up as Quaid. Of course, they explain it all to him. And they say, you've done everything we've wanted you to do at every turn. You followed the plan perfectly. This is very similar to The Matrix, with Neo thinking he has choice, but being used, and they know the choices he's going to make before he even makes them. In The Matrix or Matrix 2, anybody's screaming at me saying, well, in the scene with the architect where he surprised the architect and chose the door that would potentially lead to the destruction of Zion to save Trinity. He surprised the architect. Yeah, well, yes, but he didn't surprise the oracle. The oracle played it exactly so he would do that. They knew what Neo was going to do, and in the end of the day, the oracle and the architect were working together. So Quaid, basically, just if you didn't get any, let me just go back to the basics. Quaid, as Schwarzenegger's saying, he's like, what do you mean I've played into your hands? You had this asshole Richter trying to kill me at every turn, running around. If it wasn't for miracles, he would have killed me. And you're saying I was used to do something for you? He's like, you had help. This is the main point of this whole video. You had help. Benny here just happened to show up at the right time so you could be saved from, and Richter here, yeah, he was out of control running around. It's almost like Richter represents the minions running around trying to do their things on this very ground level, real asshole type things. And there's something higher that's kind of using the minions. As I've been analyzing this, I'm getting more and more of the sense that we think these minions, George Bush, related to Dick Cheney, related to whoever he reports to in the back room where the tea and crimpets are served, we think they have all the answers. And the more you look at this, it's like, no, they're not only playing a role, they're being used as dummies. They think they have all the answers. That's what's coming to me as time goes on. They're being used. He's like, you had help, Quaid. Benny here. Whatever. I don't know what he says in this scene, but he cites 3 or 4 or 5 main things or something. Melina, I don't know. He says, well, you had help. You didn't just on your own avoid, what is his name? Cohagen and Richter. You didn't avoid. So it's like that with us now in terms of this incredible wake-up transformation and everything we're going through. And it reminds me of when I wrote that scene, the first conversations after a failed life test. It's like you had somebody that failed, for example, in the fictitious scene I wrote in the book with the conversation after a failed life is, don't complain that it wasn't fair. You had all the help in the world. We put messages in every single form of media. We put messages in the absurd. There are messages in songs that the artist didn't even know when they wrote. You chose to not see it, to not tap into the sides of you that can see these things. You chose to believe that it's not possible that some, when Mick Jagger wrote that, he's not dropping any truth, and it couldn't have potentially been anything could have channeled through him. All that I understand is this material world fits in between my bookends. Somebody would say, "You idiot!" Somebody would say after a failed life test, you had all the help in the world if you would have just chosen to see it. Even what's happening now out our window. This is what's happening out our window, as horrible as it is. And, I miss my concerts. I love a good concert and mosh pit. And, who knows what the future will hold there. But it's a wake up. What's happening now is a wake up for those that choose to use it, like us, on steroids times 1,000,000. So who would want to go back? Who'd want to go back? I wouldn't. Because these things, what we're doing now, these types of processes, spiritual understandings, this is about 100 million times more important than returning life to normal so I can go into a big crowd. I don't know what their plans are there, but the more you look at it, even these minion jerks are being used for a greater purpose. And it's very similar to the scene in Total Recall. He's like, yeah, we played you. You did exactly what we said. And it seemed like there's no possible way you could have been it seemed to you, Quaid, that there's no possible way that you were doing our bidding the whole time, because it looked like Richter was trying to kill you and it just seemed so real and you were running for your life. But no, you did exactly what we wanted because you had help. You had help along the way. Look, it's a stretch a little bit taking that message. This message by itself, anybody listening would say is absolutely genuine. As we look around, we do see all the help we're getting, but it might not be completely applicable to the truth drops coming out of Total Recall, but nevertheless, it's still the most important point. And we're getting help from the a-holes, from the minions, from the people, from the Melvin P's and the Ellens and these creeps. We're getting. They're not trying to help us. It's the role they're potentially doomed to play that's helping us. Not trying to help us. They don't like what they're doing, but they have to do this for the human being. No, they're not. No. I've talked of this metaphor a million times. The guy that puts the little snake into his arm once a week to get a little bite from a little snake with less venom, he's building up his anti-venom, his ability to get bitten by a real king cobra later. The little snake biting him is helping him. The little snake biting him doesn't know he's helping him or isn't trying to help him. So that's that's to me what these minions are. They're probably being played more than we are. Anyway, so the main point here, though, guys, is if you realize, though I have to address this before the main point, but let me just actually, if I say the main point, I better get to it. If you realize you're getting help, then make sure every morning when you get out of bed, you look for it. You look for it. You say, that something along the way here is going to help me progress from understanding who I really am, remembering who I really am from a spiritual side. Something, it might be in a movie, be open to all things. It might be in a comic book. It might be in something that somebody says to me or yells at me in line or whatever it might be. I'm going to get help today. Are you completely open to it and aware that it is going to come? Now, people would argue as to where the help comes from. We don't need to. We agree more than where we disagree. There's no reason to go down this path. A Christian would say, of course, God is going to help and Jesus is going to help. Somebody else would say, my higher self, my tethered to higher self is going to give me the help I need so then I can in turn figure things out for my higher self. We all have differing opinions here. But the main point is just to, when you pop out of bed in the morning and say, something's going to help me today. And am I completely open to looking for it? See, that one of the main differences between us, people like me, people like you, that's from Shallow Hal. He says, I do that so much with Shallow Hal, as Jack Black says, to Stephen, whatever. He owns the mutual fund company, Rosemary's father. He says, I've heard about people like you. He says, people like me? Yeah, nothing's ever good enough. That's why you're not satisfied with your daughter. You surround yourself with wealth, and you have your Picasso out in the hall. That's from Shallow Hal. That's why I do that all the time. So people like me and people like you, if we're open, we have it wide open to all the help that this place and this reality gives us. The difference between us and the guy down the end of your cul-de-sac, he's not open to it at all. In fact, he's been bred to believe just the opposite, that our types are crazy and we're looking for the wrong thing. He's so closed off to it. He believes only help he's going to get relates to his life in this material world and comes through some authority figure or the news. Or the whole reality, it's designed so people get completely closed off to these spiritual messages. So much so that if we were to talk about where we get certain messages. Think of what we're talking about now. These types of messages in idiotic, what would seem to be idiotic movies to the guy at the end of the cul-de-sac. They wouldn't believe it for a bit. But we're open to it. We're absolutely benefiting from all of this, and everybody else around us is very closed off to it. And keep reminding yourself that, remember, we never go far enough. If these messages are in the idiotic, like this movie, then there's probably thousands of more messages in places we haven't even thought about. And open yourself up to it. And because of what's going on now, the yin and yang applies. They're going to take a giant bite of the shit sandwich. We're going to benefit on the back end. Thanks for listening.